A man that flies from his fear may find that he has only taken a short cut to meet it. Greetings and well met, my friends. Yoyston here, and I hope you all are having a great day, wherever you are in Middle-earth. After much time and many requests, I am joyous and excited to finally be doing a video on the tale of the Children of Húrin. Now, since the story is expansive, I will ultimately tell a condensed version of it, alike to its telling within the Silmarillion, although I will talk about aspects from the book, The Children of Húrin, as well. Alike to when I made my Melkor videos, while writing this video's script, I found that to give this story the justice it deserves, I will need to make 2 videos covering this tale. I do apologize that I can't cover it all today, and I hope that's okay with you guys. That just means I can cover this story more in depth today and next week. These videos will also only feature the main events within the story. However, I will revisit many events, characters, and lands within the tale in other videos to address them more directly. One more thing, this is the most sorrowful of tales within Tolkien's legendarium, so please be prepared for what is to come. With all that said, let's do this. Our story starts in the year 462 of the First Age, when the land of Hithlum was invaded by orcs. Hithlum was a land in the northwest of Beleriand during the First Age. These orcs slew Galdor, the lord of the land, but his son Húrin drove these orcs away, and he returned home as the lord of the land. 2 years later, Húrin would marry Morwen Elethwin of the House of Beor. That year they had a son named Túrin, and 2 years later they would have a daughter named Erwin, who also went by the name Lalieth, which meant laughter in Sindarin. However, Erwin would pass away at the age of 3 from a plague sent by Angband. The passing of laughter seems to foreshadow what was to come for the House of Húrin. The couple would also have another daughter named Nienor, who would be born in 473 while Húrin was off at war. In 472, Húrin went off to join the Union of Maethros, led by men, elves, and dwarves, to do battle with Morgoth in the Nir Naeth Arnodiad, or the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. However, this battle went ill for the Free Peoples, and Fingon, the High King of the Noldor himself, was slain by a Balrog. The Free Peoples were routed, so Húrin and his younger brother Hur convinced King Turgon to withdraw and keep Gondolin a secret, while Húrin's men held the line. Hur fell in battle, but Húrin fought on until he stood alone, fighting innumerable foes among orcs and trolls, and he was buried beneath them. Húrin was then captured and brought to Morgoth and Angband. He was then tortured for the location of the secret elven city of Gondolin. However, Húrin was the strongest warrior among men in the First Age, and he resisted Morgoth's attempts. So, Morgoth cursed Húrin's family, and chained him to a chair high upon the slopes of Thangorodrim, so that he may watch terrible events befall his house through the sorcery of the Dark Lord. Now that we know why terrible events will befall his house, let's transition and look at the story of Túrin, the protagonist of the story of the Children of Húrin. Growing up, Túrin became friends with Sador, the family's household servant, and the man taught him much as he grew older. However, when Túrin was at the age of 8, Easterlings came into Hithlum and made the land unsafe. Worried about her son, who was the heir to the House of Húrin, Morwen sent Túrin with some companions to Doriath to be raised as Thingol's ward, as Thingol was a good friend to Húrin. And so, Túrin and his companions came to the edge of Doriath, and were rescued from near hunger and death by Beleg Strongbow, the chief of Doriath's March Wardens. Beleg took them to Doriath, and Thingol gladly received Túrin. Shortly after, elven messengers who took the route to and from Hithlum were given the dragon helm of Dorlomin, so it could go to Túrin, as it was the greatest heirloom of his house. And so, the son of Húrin was raised in Thingol's halls, and he spent 9 years there. Messengers would bring Túrin news of his mother and younger sister, who was born shortly after Túrin had departed home. Eventually, however, the messengers did not return, and Thingol sent no more. Thus Túrin grew fearful, so he became a warrior, taking up the dragon helm and elven armor and arms, and he became a great companion of the elf Beleg. Orcs began to fear him. After 3 years of fighting the servants of Morgoth, Túrin returned to Menegroth, the halls of Thingol from the wild, and he was unkept. Seiros, an elf who was high in the councils of Thingol, grew jealous of Túrin, and he taunted the man and his kin during a meeting, so Túrin threw his drinkware at the elf and severely wounded him. So, the elf ambushed Túrin the next day as the man went to return to the lines of battle, but Túrin overcame him, and he made Seiros flee naked in the forest, coming eventually to a chasm that held a stream. Thus Seiros fell, and he met his demise upon a large rock. This was the first, but not the last death that Túrin, son of Húrin, would instigate. Mablung, the chief captain of Thingol, beheld this event with others, and he told Túrin to return to Menegroth to await judgment. Túrin fled, however, as he was afraid to be held captive, and he became an outlaw, joining others and becoming their captain named Neithen the Wronged. Thingol pardoned Túrin for his actions, and he sent Beleg forth to find his foster son. Beleg eventually found Túrin's encampment, but was made captive and mistreated by his men until Túrin discovered what was happening, and bade them release his friend. Túrin vowed to only battle and plunder from the servants of the enemy from then on. Beleg told Túrin of the pardon and requested that he return to his old life, but out of pride Túrin refused. Beleg and Túrin would afterwards depart in friendship, as Túrin went to the Bald Hill, named Amunruth, and Beleg returned to Menegroth without his friend. Thus Túrin and his company journeyed to the Bald Hill, and overcame its inhabitants, the three petty dwarves of Mim, Eibun, and Kim. A member among Túrin's company would shoot an arrow that would mortally wound and ultimately slay Kim, adding more needless blood to Túrin's hands. Mim, the father of Eibun and Kim, was captured as well, and he was forced to reveal and share his home with Túrin's company. At this time, Beleg returned to Thingol, and the Elf King was sorrowful that his foster son had not returned home. Beleg volunteered to find Túrin once again to guide and guard the man, and Thingol accepted, giving Beleg a gift of whatever he asked. Beleg asked for a sword of worth that would help him fight the numerous orcs, and he chose Anglakil, the black sword made from an asteroid by Eol, the Dark Elf. This sword had a malice and a will within it, and it would be the bane of both its wielders. And so Beleg journeyed to the Bald Hill, where Túrin told him he would be. During this time, Túrin had pitied Mim, and Mim came to respect Túrin in his own right, and the dwarf mentored Túrin for a time. Túrin promised his new friend Mim that he would repay him for the accidental murder of his son Kim. Mim accepted this, and eventually he went on to tell Túrin about his kind's hatred of elves, as the Eldar had hunted the petty dwarves as beasts until the coming of the non-petty dwarves to Beleriand. After a time, Beleg came to the Bald Hill, and gave the dragon helm to Túrin, reminding him of his true capabilities and potential beyond his current life. Still, Túrin stayed with the outlaws. However, this time Beleg remained with him, healing Túrin's men and giving them the Lembus of Melion. The elf became greatly honored among the company that was once cruel to him, and the group spent the winter of that year and the next year in Amunruth. However, Mim and Eibun's hate of the elves only grew with Beleg's presence. In the outside world, whispers of the ones who wore the dragon helm and held the bow went abroad in Beleriand, and eventually more orcs came near to that place to seek out the rumors. Túrin named himself Gorthol, the Dreadhelm. In the late parts of the next year, Mim and Eibun gathered roots in the wild, but they were captured by orcs. So Mim promised to show them his home, and planned for them to ambush Túrin's company at an opportune time, if they agreed not to slay Gorthol, who the orcs already knew as Túrin. They agreed, and the trap was sprung. Túrin was captured and the rest were slain, save Beleg and a man by the name of Andvir who fled the scene. The elf, still barely holding on to life, saw Mim trying to use Anglakil to finish the job upon him, but Beleg took back his sword, thrusting it at the dwarf who escaped his vengeance. After this terrible skirmish that costed the lives of many of Túrin's friends, Beleg would not forsake his brother-at-arms, so he healed himself and followed the orcs who had indubitably captured him. He went without sleep, and never swerved from their trail. Quote, "For the skill of Beleg was greater than any that have been in Middle-earth." End quote. As he hunted after the orcs, Beleg found an elf named Gwyndor asleep at the foot of a tree, and this elf had escaped his enslavement at the hands of Melkor after the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, and he found his way to that spot. Renewed by the Lembus that Beleg carried, Gwyndor, a lord of Nogothrond, joined the hunter on his quest. Upon the barren dunes of Anfaglith, within sight of the peaks of Thangorodrim that held Húrin, the orcs made camp. Beleg silently defeated all of the wolf sentinels, and the two elves carried Túrin out of the encampment. In a thicket of thorn trees they laid Túrin down, and with the black sword and Glakill, Beleg cut his friend's bonds. However, fate caused the blade to slip as the bonds were cut, and Túrin's foot was sliced. Awakening in terror and rage, Túrin saw a shape over him in the darkness with a drawn sword, and he struggled with his imagined enemy, taking his foe's sword and slaying him with it. He stood ready to fight more enemies, but a flash of lightning appeared, and Túrin saw the unmoving face of Beleg Cutholion. Thus, Túrin realized that he had just slain his best friend, and he sat unmoving, while the orcs nearby awoke with fear from the storm. While Gwyndor warned Túrin of their danger, Túrin sat unmoving, and eventually morning came and the storm passed, but the terror and guilt did not. The orcs thought their captive had fled far during the night, so they returned to Angband without their prize. Eventually, Gwyndor arose Túrin enough to help him bury Beleg, and with him they placed his bow Belthronding. Gwyndor took the now dulled sword and Glakill, so that it may be used against Morgoth's servants, and he took Beleg's lembas as well. Túrin, with guilt still on his face and sorrow in his mind and body, followed Gwyndor away from Tuor nu Fún. Eventually, Gwyndor brought Túrin to the pools of Irvin to be awoken from his trance and renewed by the waters. Túrin drank and cast himself down, finally letting his tears commence, freeing himself of utter madness. He made a song for Beleg named Lair Cu Beleg, the Song of the Great Bow, and he sang it aloud. Afterwards, Gwyndor gave him a Glakill, even though it was still dulled from the slaying of its master, and the two finally spoke greetings to one another. Gwyndor told Túrin of the curse that was set upon him and his family by Morgoth, and Túrin believed it fully. Then they traveled onwards, coming finally to Nargothrond. As Gwyndor had long since been absent from Nargothrond, he returned in a ragged form, but Findulas, the daughter of King Orodreth, recognized him, as the two had loved each other. Túrin kept his true name a secret in Nargothrond, calling himself Agarwin, the son of Umath, meaning blood-stained, son of ill fate. In the time following his meeting with King Orodreth, Túrin gained favor, and the elves reforged the sword Glakill, and he renamed it Gurthang, the Iron of Death. He was also called Adanathil, the Elfman, for his speech and bearing from Dorioth. His fighting skills alongside the elves on the guarded plain also gave him the name Mormegil, the Black Sword. Tales and legends began growing about Mormegil, and he took up dwarf mail and a dwarf mask, which gave him a fierce and terrifying appearance on the battlefield. Eventually, the love of Findulas changed from Gwyndor and went to Túrin, and as we will see, this would cause strife. For all of his new allies, names, and relics, Túrin would soon be tested by Morgoth and his servant Glaurung the dragon. Thus, we bring today's video about the tale of the Children of Húrin to a close. From the story so far, we see what arrogance, haste, and agony can do to a person. We must be thoughtful in our deeds and actions, for if we aren't, we may come to carelessly hurt others and bear a terrible guilt. Thank you all so much for watching this first part concerning the tale of the Children of Húrin. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to hit that like button and share this video with a friend. Let me know what you all think about this story and its chief protagonist so far in the comments below. It is indeed a sad but inspiring three-dimensional story, and I look forward to finishing the second part of it next week. If you'd like to contact me directly, please be sure to join us on Facebook and Twitter, and to help the channel grow, please consider donating to us on Patreon. Due to the dark tone of this tale, I'm not entirely sure that this video or next week's will be fully monetized, so I really appreciate any donation that the channel receives. It also allows me to keep making content like this in the future. Links for all of those websites are in the description below. Also, make sure to subscribe to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today. I will see you all next week with part 2, and as always, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. It truly means a lot. Until the next one, my friends.